Hello and welcome to our first ever video podcast, and we are here to review the year of 1996 classic EastEnders.
As shown on the drama channel recently.
Good year.
It's a very good year. Just want to remind people that if you are listening to this on audio, find us on our YouTube channel, just search Walford Weekly Podcast, and you can now watch it in full video form with our ugly mugs and everything.
It's a trial and error, so we are here to...
More error than trial.
But, yeah, 96, very good year. I mean, we were worried about 96 last year because of how good 95 was. And it's every year it's that thing of when will it not be able to keep up with itself?
Yeah, every year it seems to get better and better and better. In the 90s especially. I mean, in the 80s it had that little dip. But then when it kicked in back into the 90s, it suddenly got really good again. But I mean, I think I may have said this on the podcast for 1995 as well, but it's a bit worrying that we seem to be getting some indications that the quality is starting to dip a little bit.
Yeah, there's every now and then there's something, isn't there? Like mainly Hugh and Lenny.
I feel you've got a real thing about Hugh and Lenny, and I really don't, because it's nice to see in EastEnders a young cast being having a storyline, and they're doing what young people would have done in the 90s, and that party all night.
Yeah, I mean 96 probably is like, it's the young TV show, isn't it? Like there's a lot of young people and young things going on, apart from Sarah, who's being a bit of an old woman.
Well, she is a young, but she's reflecting of like young people who are easily influenced, who didn't, who almost ignored when they were younger in their lives. That's right. When they've grabbed onto something and they're now clinging onto it with all their...
She was a kleptomaniac at one point. She not anymore. But yeah, we said obviously some very sad goodbye. One very sad goodbye.
Yeah, huge.
Steve Elliott.
Oh, sorry. Yes, of course. Good old Steve. Yes.
Remembered forever. I mean, trying to find a photo of him a photo of him for people who have left was impossible because he was obviously so loved.
But he was in the show for a long time.
I know.
Don't forget.
He's like the Ruth Fowler of the 80s.
Yeah,
wasn't
he was with Hattie. Then he went off to the QE2. Was it, or on some?
Yeah, he had lots
liner.
of location things.
Yeah, they had a storyline in Southampton. Then came back to Walford after a small hiatus. So
but nothing in 96. He left with Lydia, the character they introduced to basically then get rid of Steve. So he went.
It was nice though, because he fell in love, didn't he? And then she got threatened. I forget now. Why
she got kidnapped, didn't she?
Yeah, why did she get kidnapped?
Because he was working... It was the people who were doing the gambling with Mark, and they wanted to get him for the trial for Arthur, which leads us to the actual sad exit of our Arthur Fowler. Our number one character.
My favourite character.
Yep. Favourite male. Still is.
My favourite all time. I don't get me wrong, I love
There wasn't a bad point in him, was there really?
Yeah, I love Kathy, I love Sharon, but Arthur is just my absolute number one. My kindred spirit. I completely, 100% can relate to everything that happened to Arthur. The affair.
Beginning to end as well. Like his character didn't have like a bad moment, because the actor but the actor put every single performance, like he put it in. So it was very sad to see him.
But no, the actor 100% gave it 110%, and he was he was excellent. He played Arthur passionately. One of the reasons why he left or wanted to leave was because he thought like the show was starting to get a bit weaker,
and I think the show itself annoyed him. Like he said, the theme tune just annoyed me when I heard it.
Oh, really?
And, like, that was time to then go, it was sad. It was a big... Arthur's character is definitely missed. And they tried to replace him with Felix.
Oh, Felix
the barber, who didn't quite match up, bless him.
Well, he's still in it. He's not left the show. He's gone to Israel to find his family, because he did that. Every time Felix was in a scene, he'd basically just tell you a story about his past. Like he was kidnapped by the Nazis.
And a butterfly.
Oh yeah, and his butterfly collection. Because was it last year when he was accused of being...
Yes.
Okay, so this year, his journey this year has literally been him complaining that he doesn't get any business in his barbershop, closing the barbershop, and then complaining that everyone needs their haircut. Yeah. I mean, if only he was still open during lockdown, he'd be making a mint right now, wouldn't he?
I know.
Everything's opening up.
But Arthur's storyline very well planned out, because Bill filmed all his scenes ahead of time, because him and Michelle left at the same time, and it was a bit like the Dirty Den situation. The producers were like, we can't lose Sue Tully and Bill at the same time. It's not going to happen. So the amount of preparation and planning that went into his exit was so impressive, because there were moments when he came out of prison, when he got found innocent, and baby Ben's christening was going on at the same time, and people mentioned Arthur was there, and Arthur mentioned the christening, and but they were filmed at completely different times. So it was so impressive how much planning and time must have gone into that storyline.
Oh, totally.
Which you would never see ever nowadays. Like literally 8 months ahead of time, and they knew this date when Arthur's here, Pauline and Ruth are going to be here at christening. It's so
forward planning basically. They had a plan from beginning to end of Arthur's exit. I mean,
and it's
Arthur's
why
exit
when
story,
Arthur walked down round the square for the final time, there was no one there because they were at the christening, and it's like, that was his final walk round and
off to the allotment.
I know.
Off to see pastures new. It was really sad, and it really affected Martin so much so that he got a brand new face this year. I mean, I miss old Martin.
I know. He had his final scene with Bill though, didn't he? So that was quite nice that was kind of the end of that Martin, I guess.
But it's a shame the new Martin kind of didn't have a chance to do a couple of scenes with Bill as well. But no, I mean, when Pauline went away to America, came back with a USA jumper. I love it. Whenever characters leave America, they always come back with something American. Like Sharon would come back with a Donald Duck toy or Mickey Mouse t-shirt.
Mickey Mouse headphones.
Or the ears. And Pauline came back from America after visiting Michelle.
Had a baby.
Michelle's had a jumper. Mark Jr.
Yeah.
Grant still doesn't know it's his.
No,
it's
but again,
the longest time the secret is kept on the soap.
It is, because it's not till like 2017 and 18 something like that it comes out.
Oh, hello.
Oh god. And again, like Pauline showing photos of the baby, and Grant sort of looks over, but nothing else is said, and it's just those little touches which makes this year quite amazing.
But Grant doesn't seem to mind, because now he thinks he has got his own kid in the form of Tiffany's bump.
Yes, Courtney, because Tiffany and Bianca were kind of like the new Michelle and Sharon this year.
Yes.
Like they took over as that sort of friendship, those young characters who actually had meaty storylines. Obviously Bianca's were kind of set aside a bit this year because the actor Ricky had to take that break. So I think her storyline kind of got paused.
Yeah, let's talk about Sid Owen for a moment, because not only did he have to take a break for personal reasons, I don't think we need to delve into it, but I mean, you can look it up on the internet if you need to know the full reason. But then he mysteriously broke his hand or broke fingers. And and there was just a passing comment, wasn't it, on the episode where Bianca
he
said,
cut his finger off.
He was doing some DIY and he cut his finger off.
But Sonia broke her arm as well, didn't she?
Yes.
She was walking around with a cast, so I don't know what's going on in that set. But anyway, that was Arthur's exit. Very sad, very well written, amazing. Kind of the end of the Fowlers as we know them, though.
I mean, this is it, wasn't it? There is no presence for the Fowlers anymore. Like the main family.
Because Wendy Richards had to have time off as well, so everything kind of was left on Ruth's shoulders. Which Ruth's shoulders aren't the best shoulders to be left carrying a family.
I mean, Ruth is just one problem after another with Ruth, isn't it? I mean, I get that with soaps, the whole point is that it's always like turmoil and trouble going on. But I don't know. So it seems to always be a bit different for Ruth. For Ruth, it always seems to be a big problem for her.
And very aggressive the way she talks to everyone.
Yeah.
I know she's Scottish, but my goodness. I mean, loads happened this week, so we cannot fit everything in. I mean, even Frank Butcher, who was in the beginning of the year, seems like it was years and years and years away. And there was a second car lot fire, and there was the whole thing with David and Barry trying to keep hold of their business and not let Frank back in. Frank and Pat slept together, didn't they? That was a secret for the rest of the year.
That was such a mistake.
She can't keep her trousers on, her pants on, her skirts on, her stockings on.
Yeah, suspenders. Yeah, that was such a mistake. I mean, I love Roy.
Pat's biggest mistake.
Yeah, Roy and Pat are good for each other. I mean, I do, and I think it was at the time even thought that Pat kind of settled with Roy. Her love was always with Frank, and as much as she objected to it and kept saying, "Oh no, you know, Roy, you're always my number one now." You know, Pat, Frank means nothing to me. It was always a lie. Deep down in her heart, Frank was always her number one.
I mean, Frank was quite horrible on his return. I felt like he wasn't the same guy that left, was he? He was really damaged by what happened to him.
But then it made sense. It made sense for the character
Working
to be
in
like
a warehouse,
that.
it will do that to you.
Well, he left on a breakdown, didn't he? He had a breakdown, he left, and left his whole family abandoned, and then came back expecting everyone to just welcome him with open arms. But in fact, he was just tearing the family apart.
He thought he could just come
again.
back in and it would be back to normal, but it wasn't. He then took Janine away with him.
Yes.
So Janine is gone as well. She left.
She'll be back with a new
Back to
face.
return, yes, as Charlie Brooks in a few years.
Yeah.
What else do we have? We had Carol and Alan finally, after 7 years together, she finally said yes to marrying him, because they were going to April Branning's wedding.
Yes,
with,
I
Orlando or whatever his name was, her Greek god of a husband who
I forget.
didn't turn up, did he, to the altar?
I loved
April.
Yeah, I loved April Branning.
Because she became a regular character after this, and then she also left at the same time.
Really weird, wasn't it? Because she really
shame.
got herself stuck in really quickly. She had a really interesting storyline. She was dating the market inspector, who had a real deep cold.
Yeah, Michael.
Yeah, the whole time
I
he dated her, he always
his
seemed really unwell.
His storyline seemed to get a bit messed up as well from that, I think, because he kind of just went missing for 8 months.
Yeah,
and it's but it's because the actress decided it wasn't for her. But it was a shame because the look of her, she looked like a soap character, if that makes sense, with her brassy blonde hair and working in the cafe.
And it was nice to see the Brannings being built up. It was nice to have Carol.
Derek.
Yeah,
tried to beat up Alan, and then David beat him up.
David stood in, so that kind of caused David to be a bit more friendly with the Brannings again. More on David and obviously the Brannings later on, and Carol, I should say. But
met Jim, the racist, horrible father,
and it was the actor as well, wasn't it?
Yeah,
because a lot of the actors were recast. Because you met Max as well, I think.
No, Max and Jack weren't. Well, they weren't mentioned.
Well, they were in the background.
There were men there.
Yeah, so you kind of presumed that was Max and Jack, but. Yeah, but Jim, it was so lovely seeing the actor.
It was nice, and it's amazing that in 97, 98, when he actually comes in it, they didn't recast.
No.
So it's nice.
They knew they had a hit with him.
But they got married, and happy marriage is what Carol finally admitted to after Alan really berated her.
Yeah.
And then
wore her down more like.
Yeah. And then Frankie appears.
I
the
hate
singer
Frankie.
in the cafe.
I hate all singers. All singers that come onto the show always end up being trouble. It happened with Clyde, didn't it?
Oh yeah, that woman she had a flat in Southampton.
Valentine's Day.
She was awful. And
she was
Frankie was
Frankie's
just
doing the same trend.
I think they did the actress. I mean, we're separating the actress and the character. Sadly,
of course.
the what happened to the actress in real life is just a horrible thing. Yeah. So, but we are literally talking just about Frankie the character. But I do feel that they did her dirty, because you can have that bitch villainess woman, a man-eater, but Frankie had nothing redeeming about her. That was the trouble with her. She was just horrible, and the reasons why she went after married men aren't really.
Well, she liked the chase of it, and she liked that they were married, because as soon as Alan had split with Carol,
and then
she
said,
lost
"Fine, I'll
interest
go with you."
immediately, and she just didn't care, and she was like, "I don't think it's working out." And then
getting a bit close now.
Yeah,
and it's she's just nasty, and she's nasty to everyone. Even when she worked in the cafe, she's just horrible. But there's no. She's like Suki, but more two-dimensional. There's nothing.
Yeah, but
to make you think.
Suki's got that soft side and the family attachment to her, so you can kind of see why she does. She does it to protect not only herself, but she does it to protect her family, her unit. But with her, she just doesn't. Frankie just doesn't have anyone linked to her other than the guy who she does the music
and he
with.
just keeps saying her, "You're going to ruin everything."
Yeah.
She's like, "Yeah, I am."
Yeah, exactly. She's like, "Okay." No, she's a horrible character. But not you say, nice not the actress.
I don't even like the storyline, because it makes so little sense that Alan would do that to Carol months after marrying her. So.
After he tried so hard to get her married, to get married together, not her married off, obviously. And also his family with Sonia and Robbie and Bianca and Billy. They all consider him his dad, because he's been there probably the longest time with Carol, and he's looked after them like a dad. I mean, there was a story last year when he was being very fatherly with Bianca, where he was very concerned that she was getting a bit wayward and getting out of control drinking. It might have been night 4 actually when that happened, when he was working at the hotel.
Oh, nights, with Tiffany, wasn't it?
And so to do this, because he's got a family there, a ready-made family, which he protects, and to do that just seemed really out of character for Alan.
It was. I mean, the actor did leave over this storyline again, so Excuse me, would you put your bum out of shot, please?
Anyone listening on the audio, our cat is coming in and out of shot.
Exposing himself.
Yeah. Any good reason to watch the video?
So going on with the year, we had a very, very good moment with Mark's HIV, which is another long-running storyline of him not telling anyone in the community, only his close family. And
Peggy finding out.
And it does all come out, doesn't it?
Well, and the worst possible person, and that is Peggy. So Grant knew, and it kind of... Because of Michelle. Well, no, not because of Michelle, it was because of Ruth, essentially. Because Ruth warned the ambulance driver that,
And then it all came down to her babysitting Ben, which made Grant want it to come out. And then Kathy found out, and then Kathy told her brother Ted just before she promised not to tell anyone once she made up with Pauline. And then Ted used it in an argument against Peggy.
Against Pauline. And Peggy overheard behind the bar.
And then it all just... all the rumours and all the people started talking about it and thinking, no, that's... If Mark did... Like, Sanjay and Nigel were like, oh, no, if Mark did have that, he would have told us. And it, like, slowly dripped through the community. And it was quite horrible watching it because you felt really sorry for Mark, knowing that all these people were talking about him with this private matter. And Peggy was quite blasé about it. Like, she would walk into the cafe and be like, oh, Mark apparently has HIV, what do you all think?
This is the thing, you see. She wasn't blasé, actually. She was quite sneaky and conniving with it. She almost did it as if it was important that people knew, but she did it
loudly.
But she did it with loud whispers, didn't she? So she would go into the cafe and say, oh, Nigel, have you heard? Mark's got HIV.
Or Sanjay, have you heard? Or Ted, have you... Like, to all these different people.
And Nigel, to be fair to Nigel, I mean, Nigel's just an upstanding citizen, isn't he? He kind of said to Peggy, like, this isn't something you should, spread, especially if it's not true. And Peggy was adamant. Peggy, that these are the kind of rumours you really shouldn't spread. It's not very nice to spread these rumours. But then it all came to a crashing end when Mark basically stood up in front of everyone in the pub and made that fantastic speech.
Very good scene. It's like 3 minutes long, and he just says to her, like, he says to the whole pub, doesn't he? The whole pub full, and he says, "You don't have a clue. You don't know nothing." And it was just very powerfully written and
performed. Give Todd Carty his due. I'm sorry, but props to props to Todd Carty. He really did an excellent portraying the whole story. To be honest with you, I mean, up until that point where it was always a secret, and then the aftermath also where the sales of his market store was starting to decline, and Ruth's job was on the line. Another problem for Ruth, and he was encouraged to kind of talk to the parents, and he was at first he didn't really want to because he wanted to keep it as a problem amongst the community, but then realised that the only way people will learn is by talking to one another and knowing the facts. It was just so well done.
And such a long build up and payoff as well, like years and years.
But for an issue-based story as well. I mean, issue-based stories can sometimes be a little bit like, okay, so they're doing this, are they? The BBC feel like they have to do it.
And then once it's done, it's done. But like Mark's does carry on.
And it's still carrying on today. Even now, there's echoes now and then. Like every now and then, Ruth gets called to one side by her boss, and she's always like, "You're going to sack me, aren't you? You're going to sack me because of Mark." And it's still used. And also, at the end of the year, where Kathy's decided she's going to start working back at the cafe again, she said to Phil, "I'm going to ask Ruth to look after Ben for me." And
is that
Phil's,
right?
Yeah, and Phil's first reaction was like, "Oh," but then Kathy was like, "Oh, don't be stupid. We're over it now." So it's still there's still reminiscences of it, and it's fantastic. Really well done.
It was. Other things we had Blackpool Week with all the young uns.
I love Blackpool Week.
With when they met the B&B owners, and even they like had characters and things, which was really impressive. And they took Dan with them, who was Tony's like druggy friend, who they've been pushing drugs all year, haven't they? And they thought, we'll go to Blackpool and do some more business. Sarah comes along, Ricky, Bianca, Tiffany, she's pregnant, but she's with Tony, and Tony's questioning if he's gay or not. And it was a real build up. Like lots of storylines were building up, like because Joe's there with his schizophrenia, and Sarah's there with she's found religion, and like all these random characters get bundled in a bus together and go to Blackpool, and it's quite chaotic. But
it's more chaotic because of all the crazy shots they kept using as well for like the
incidental music,
and there was
them on a roller
music.
coaster. dance
you cannot
music.
complain about it anymore. You cannot say that they never use incidental music.
It was
in
a
the old
special
days.
occasion, wasn't it?
But it's episodes like that we don't have anymore, and it felt special. As you said, there was lots of stories coming together, and they kind of were. They worked together, but at the same time they worked separately as well. So it made sense that all these characters would be in this situation together, and it was brilliant. I really enjoyed Blackpool.
It was good fun. And like the drama continued as well when they got back, because there was a set of really good episodes where Tony and Simon kissed again, and Tiffany didn't know if the baby was his or not, and she told Grant, and then she went to go to Tony, and she walked in on her brother kissing, and it was just like it all was just going off, wasn't it, all at once?
And Tiff, we don't really know if Tiff's kid is actually Grant's, because she's still throwed it up in the air and kind of saying...
Now that Tony is now with Simon, she's like, okay, I'm going to go to Grant's. That's my next easiest option. You are the dad. But really, she doesn't really know, does she?
She doesn't have a clue.
Bless her. But even more going on. We had the great riot of Walford, with the playground and Stephen getting run over by a car.
I mean, it was a grotty playground. For them to get so upset over that hellhole, let's be honest with you. And they kept finding needles, didn't they? And that was the reason
the nightclub opened.
Yeah, and that was the reason why the council had decided to sell it off to private land builders.
But it was fun, that episode, where like there was a riot and all the women of Walford were throwing things down, and Cindy was breaking a car, and Pauline walked out of her house for 2 seconds and she got arrested.
But that was what's so good about it, wasn't it? That was so great, because they had all those characters. They had Pauline, Cindy, Lorraine,
Alan and Nigel.
Alan and Nigel were separate, but also Carol, and they were all sat in the prison cell together, and they were all talking about David Wicks, and it was the fact that you knew the secret that Cindy was having the affair with David Wicks.
Yeah, Lorraine was the ex-wife, and Carol was Bianca's dad.
All the women that David has, been, well, apart from Pauline, obviously, but you know what I mean. So it was a really good scene where they were talking about David. And I love the line when, I think it was Carol may have said, she said, oh, David loves that we're talking about him right now, and it's absolutely true, because David loves being the centre of attention for everyone.
And this year really was kind of like David Wick's year, because he had his hands in all the pies, and it was sadly his last year for quite a while, till 2012. And he had a busy year, he had the car lot, he had the stuff with Bianca, he had the affair with Cindy, then he had feelings for Carol, and then he had the stuff with Phil, and it was just...
And his son, don't forget, his son
and Joe
came.
and
Joe
Lorraine,
came to Square, and
very busy, because Cindy was getting very obsessive with David, wasn't she? Because they planned to run away, and David at the time was up for it, but then all of a sudden his son was here, his daughter was there, his ex-wife was there. Everyone was setting down roots, and
that's right. He wanted to make roots, wasn't he? He was settled now, and he liked being there, and he liked the job at the car lot, and he liked working for Roy and Barry,
and he liked having the affair. I think when Cindy started wanting a bit more than just the affair, that's when he sort of was like, actually, no, you can just... He's
a bit like Frankie, isn't he? But more lovable. He's a bit more of a lovable rogue, you know what I mean? And that's not me saying that, like, if a man has an affair, then it's okay, but when a woman has an affair, it's not. It's just that the way David was portrayed was that you kind of rooted for him in a weird way. And I loved Cindy as well. I mean, Cindy is an awful character. She is so terrible to Ian and his family, and she's literally dumped on him from a great height twice now, from the same family as well, the Wicks brothers. And it's just, I just love it. I love the fallout of all that.
And it got to that point because she was gonna tell Ian, but Ian got a private investigator, and he found out before she got the chance to.
That scene when he was listening to them,
in the car,
do the act, and in the car, and he's just breaking it, turn it off.
And then
I'm surprised that's not more of an iconic moment. Like when he says, "I've got nothing left." It reminded me of that scene a little bit.
And he then used that power information to then get the kids, and that's what broke Cindy over the edge of being an affair to I want to just kill you, basically. And she went to Barry because Barry had done the car lot at the beginning of the year, so he had some dodgy contacts, and then she got the phone number for a hitman.
I mean, Barry is a completely different character to the one that we know and love, like from the later down the line when he's, Janine on the hilltop.
You forget about his beginnings, don't you?
Really different. He's much more of a kind of like a geezer, isn't he? And he knows people as well. It's the same with Roy.
Yeah, he's like a gangster.
Yeah, Roy had some real roots from his like underground gangster days, and it surprised me really. But it made more sense to me then, again, knowing that kind of backstory about Roy, of why Pat kind of did like Roy, kind of got together with him. But
yeah, he's got that edge to him, I guess, hasn't he?
Roy was able to kind of do these things and have control over them, while Barry kind of just carries them out and then doesn't really know how to follow them up very well.
And David, I guess, he didn't agree with what Cindy did. Like, that was like, he used that as his excuse as to why he wasn't going to carry on with Cindy, where really I think it was all getting a bit serious and deep for him.
Yeah.
But she went on a train. She only managed to get 2 of the kids.
Eurostar. I thought it was a great little plug for Eurostar that day.
So she left Lucy, but David promised that he'll get Lucy and then I'll come meet you. But obviously he just went off on his own instead.
Well, I think at the train station, didn't he kind of just admit that he wasn't going to carry on, and because he gave her that
Phil
money.
and Grant were just like, she got away well.
Yeah, I know. It was like oh, good. He was it. Good luck to her. So even though they wanted to help Kathy's son, deep down inside they didn't really care very much, really.
No. We also had, we're running out of time now, but there's like the Phil's alcoholic storyline starting, but I think that accelerates a lot more next year. But poor old Kathy,
I know,
stuck with Phil. He's just horrible.
I love his hiding places in the salt tray, in the dishwasher, in the back of the cupboard.
I know, they're really quite ingenious.
He's filling up like oil cans, isn't he, or something like that when he was in the garage. No,
White Spirit.
It was de-icer. Yeah, it was White Spirit, wasn't it? And he was emptying them without washing them out and adding. I mean, that's a hell of an alcoholic cocktail.
Bless him. So that's going to continue on next year. We've got Joe's big storyline where he's been suffering with his mental health, which
amazing.
Which I think concludes again next year. So we'll talk about that a bit more in depth on the next.
But can I just say that scene when again it was David who kind of spotted that Joe was slowly. His schizophrenia was slowly starting to kick.
There's been lots of signs all along.
There was lots of signs all along. And when he walked into that room and you just saw that shot of the camera zooming out and then it kind of panned around that whole room and you saw the newspaper cuttings and the writings on the wall. And he painted spots, almost like spots where he felt safe on the floor and on the carpet.
Everything was wrapped in tinfoil and stuff. And David just didn't know. Because like his whole flat was like the TV was taped up, but David was kind of almost ignoring it. Like he was kind of thinking, I'm thinking of bailing.
I don't think he knew what to do.
No,
and his natural response to all that is to get out and leave. I mean, like you said, that moment when Joe was like wrapping up the television and the lamp and he broke the phone and all that, and you literally just saw David sat in the middle of the room, staring blankly at the wall. You could almost tell in his face, he was like, "What the heck do I do?"
It was. Well, sadly he bailed, and poor Joe, that kept happening to him, and then he kind of hooked onto Carol, and Carol hooked onto Joe because her and David had that thing together, and poor Lorraine was just trying to be a mum to him, and he just wasn't letting her in. So I really like Lorraine, actually. She's not a character you ever hear much about, but I think the actress was so good it made Lorraine a bit more bearable, because she was a bit not whiny, but she was a bit overbearing mother, wasn't she?
Well, she was just like, why does Joe not want to see me?
Yeah.
Why does Joe not want to see me?
Joe's fine. Don't take him to hospital. Yeah.
But then whenever she was asked at the pub, how are you? She'd be like, I'm okay, actually. Every time her response was that. I mean, she's taken time with me to warm, but
I think the actress helps it a lot, because she does things which just make her feel like a real character. Like the way she just reacts to things that people say. I know we make fun of her laughing, or like Nigel says something, but things like that make you feel like, oh, she could be a real person. Yeah. So I think the actress really helps the character in that way.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Finally, Peggy had a big storyline because she was missing for a bit. She's got a new relationship with George, the nightclub owner. And she has a storyline where she finds a lump and she opens up to Tiffany, which is a really nice little relationship, because she doesn't open up to anyone else. And if it wasn't for Tiffany, I don't think Peggy would have even gone to the doctor, because she kept...
Dr. Legg.
She kept pressuring Peggy to go. So, good for Tiff.
It was a lovely... Again, it was so nice, and it was, again, so well...
Real.
Perceived, it was just portrayed. It was so well portrayed. The way that the fear that a woman her age would feel going to the doctors, feeling like this is her. If she went to the doctor, is almost admitting her own death, And it's just fun. And knowing what we know of how Peggy's final story goes, it was heartbreaking watching
because she kept saying, if I have this operation, I want you to guarantee this isn't going to kill me, this isn't going to come back. And obviously that's a fear of Peggy's right through until her final scenes years and years later.
And I don't think it's the end of it either. I think in a year, I don't know if it's next year.
It does come back a few times, doesn't it?
Yeah, and because her biggest fear was losing her breast. And I mean, I'm sure most people remember it was quite a big storyline when she stands in front of the mirror and she kind of looks at herself.
Yeah, she's got a suit on, hasn't she?
Yeah, and she's and after she has the operation, it's
these storylines really tug at your heartstrings because they follow Peggy. They follow her from like a doctor's appointment to the hospital to talking to the nurses, and like written down, you could think that could be quite mundane, but actually seeing her sit in an office and just wait for a result and then boringly going through the results with her and this is what happens, it makes it feel so real. Whereas you compare it to like modern day when Bobby is having therapy for like his OCD, they just tell you about it in the kitchen,
which happened off screen.
And it's like that's what makes you so disconnected. Whereas this, you feel like you're Peggy's son sitting there listening to her have the news, which makes it all feel so real. And there was a lovely moment on Christmas Day where the first person she tells is Mark, because obviously
outside of her family,
because obviously the things that happen between her and him with the HIV, she speaks to him and says, I understand now. And that's another lovely moment. And Pauline's like just there like
with her USA jumper.
What do you want? She opens the door, doesn't she?
On Christmas Day. Pleased, but it was such a lovely moment.
And from there, her and Peggy and Mark have a real close friendship.
But Mark's a bit worried by it, isn't he? Like every time he goes to the pub now, Peggy makes a beeline and says, "Oh, do you want a beer, Mark?"
Free pint, my best friend.
And Mark's like, "Yes," and kind of cautiously takes it. Can I also talk about one story with my favourite character of 1996, and that's Ian Woods. The little boy that could
with Ruth
upset Ruth.
The storyline's not finished yet though, so we will be talking about it next year as well.
I mean, he's basically a little boy who there's evidence to show that he's getting abused at home, and Ruth will not let it go.
No, and the mum is getting really like annoyed at Ruth, isn't she? She's like, for God's sake.
I mean, the thing is that you're meant to root for Ruth, to find out what this is happening with this boy. But the whole time she just annoys me. Like she gets warned all the time by the social worker, just don't interfere, and every time she interferes. I mean,
she's not doing any help. But the little boy's loving it. He's throwing puzzles over. He's pushing people,
upsetting other little kids because he's pouring paint on their paintings. I love Ian Woods.
So
Ian Woods I'll bring back Ian Woods. I want him back. He can be like the young police officer in Line of Duty. He can be like the same actor, just playing him a bit older.
Come get Martin, can't he?
Yeah.
Right, so that's most of the year. I think we've covered all the big points. Obviously, there's probably loads more we haven't covered. But
comment and let us know, anyone who's listening or watching this, let us know what your favourite moments were and what we may not have covered. Maybe one of your favourite moments was one.
So are you ready to rate?
Of course. Am I going first?
You can do, yeah.
Well, I want to just say before I do rate that I think this year is the first year where the soap went a little bit soapy. Do you know what I mean? It stopped being a little less serious.
Like grit.
Yeah, but it struck the right balance of realism and over the top soap fantasy. Obviously, the extreme was in 1996, the Cindy Beale shooting. And so
they kept that realistic because they kept the police investigating everyone and stuff. They didn't just drop it.
And I love the bit, actually, I must say, on the moment when Cindy got when Ian got shot, when you heard helicopters in the sky, and obviously they couldn't afford it, and so the actors were obviously all instructed to go,
the hair blowing.
Please. It's brilliant. With that all in mind, and I thought it was a really good year. Well, I can't remember, what did I give last year? I think I gave it a B+.
Who knows?
I want to give the same mark as last year, and same Mark Fowler as last year.
Okay.
So if it was a B+,
better, not worse.
I don't think it's better or worse. So I think, though Arthur left, and that was so heartbreaking for me. Do you know what? I'm gonna an A for Arthur.
Yeah, I was going to do an A as well.
An A for Arthur.
The stuff with Arthur was so impressive to me. The forward planning of it all, and the filming of all the scenes, and even making Willie Roper, like the villain. They gave a backstory to him with his mum with dementia. So they gave layers to everything.
Yeah.
And just the forward planning of it all was just so impressive. They had to keep continuity with Ruth's hair, which kept changing. They kept that in check.
Another thing that annoyed me. Poor Ruth.
Yeah, so it's very strong, solid A, because the year was so well planned out from beginning to end.
That's true.
Like even the thing coming out about Pat sleeping with Frank came out with Roy in the end, just before their wedding. And
and they had to delay their wedding because of the Cindy and David thing. So
it was just, you could tell whoever was in charge at the time was planning ahead, and nothing was sort of dropped or changed, or it was just.
That's true.
It was very well planned out. So
a lesson to be learnt, some might say, with the modern day. Don't just come in each week and
2 weeks ahead.
Just come in each week and say, right, what are we doing this week then, kids? Yeah, plan a year ahead. I mean, it's so nice when you see long story arcs happen like that, because the payoff is just so wonderful.
Yeah, so much better. So there you go. That was our first video podcast review. If you are watching or listening to us,
yes,
thank you.
Don't forget, you can get in touch with us on Twitter, Instagram, or our Facebook group. Just search Walford Weekly Podcast. And also, don't forget to comment, share, like, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you are watching this. Every single little part helps us out.
And give us a comment below of your rating of the year.
Yes,
your grade, A+ to F.
Yeah, the old system. No, don't.
No, 96 ain't going to get you from anyone. But anyway, thanks for watching, and we will see you on the next one.